Hello Poppets, I hope you're well. Depression is unfortunately a very close thing to my heart, as I've suffered with it on and off for years, especially my teenage years. The stigma and contempt that comes from other people's points of views of depression of itself. If people have not suffered it, they truly won't understand or sympathise. How could they? It's a very unique and individual experience, and you simply cannot explain it. You're seen as weak and mentally ill, and it really didn't help when the very people who were around you when you got depression were the ones that caused it in the first place, maybe. I know for me it definitely was. I had reoccurring depression from around the age of 14 to my early 30s. When I finally did my research and found my mother was emotionally and verbally abusive, I didn't even realise. I thought she was just mean as I was growing up. I later discovered it had deeply impacted me and my nervous system because overly sensitive to my environment. It was the only way I could cope with it. And with life and its situations, my nervous system was constantly on fight or flight. And what normal people would deal with life, I couldn't. The pressures of life were simply too much for me. And my cycle would usually run for every 2 years or so. And my depression would then hit me. And then my depression would last it could last anything from 3 months up to 2 years was the longest I had it for. And my reoccurring depression every few years was just then a part of my life. And I went offline for a few years and I gradually come back on. My mind started to cope, and that hopeless, empty black void of nothingness over the years actually became my comfort blanket. And if you've had it, you know what I'm talking about. Then one day, all of a sudden, I realised about 4 years into not having depression anymore. But I sat one day and I realised I actually missed my old friend depression, and how it used to wrap its dark arms and blanket over me in my times of being vulnerable. And it has now been 11 years since my last depressive episode. I'm very happy to say. I just got burnout instead. Anyway, that's another story for another time. I saw a quote the other day that said, "Is depression a sane response to an insane world?" Blimey, that really hit home for me personally. And this is the reason I've done this video now, is because I don't really think about depression anymore. But when I did have it, it was a major part of my life. And I know there's a lot of people out there suffering at the moment. And it's not fair. We are going through a very difficult time in life in general, and people are really struggling to cope. So I think this video is probably needed more than ever. Not just talking about me constantly. We'll get on to a different story in a moment. But personally, I think the world we live in is, especially today, insane. It's absolutely crazy. It's hard to get your head around and live in this reality every day. And the more people now than ever have suffered depression since 2020. We are trying to survive every day, barely living and putting food on our tables, and it's crazy. It has become almost impossible to find joy in life these days. 1 in 4 people will suffer depression at some point in their lives. And with the numbers being so high, why do we still view depression as a rare occurrence? It's unfair to people who have it, and then people who gradually have it coming up over the years as well. So I looked it up online at the statistics of depression, and there's been a 60% rise over the last decade. And for years, the stigma of depression has loomed over us as a society. It's crazy. I don't understand it. If we're being seen as being depressed, we are the strange ones. We have this big black mark put against our names as we're difficult, and not one of them. We're looked down on, and so on and so forth. We're seen as weak and unable to cope like others do, when in reality, no one knows the burdens we carry. We are not weak by any means. If anything, it's because we've been strong for too long, and that's because we battle demons that no one knows of. Just because things do not break other people, it doesn't mean that one is stronger than another. We've all got completely different lives, haven't we? And we all view the world very differently. And especially if we've had trauma, we all have different experiences and different nervous systems, because that's a biggie as well. If we grew up in a volatile household that was a daily war zone, our nervous systems do not develop the same way as a loving, calm environment would nurture. Hence, our lives and nervous systems being out of balance, and always something disjointed in our lives and never fitting together. When in reality, we are trying to cope with something that our brains cannot compute or get over. Our brain shutting down to the problem or society it can no longer cope and needs a rest. Jim Carrey says that depression is deep rest. It's your body needs to be depressed. It needs deep rest from the character that you've been playing. This is what he says. Another thing that I stumbled upon was another quote online. People with depression score higher on tests of realism. Intelligence is positively correlated with mental illness and unaliving. Yeah, what this indicates is that if the mind understands too much about our reality, it literally wants to destroy itself. Human life is existential horror. That was scary. That's what's prompted me to do this video, because I read that and I was like, wow, that really hit home. We are more realistic. And especially if we've had the childhoods that we've had, or just generally a bad life, it doesn't really say that we're going to have childhood trauma. It could just be that nothing ever goes right for you, and no matter how much you try. So depressive realism is the hypothesis, it's easy for you to say, that people with mild to moderate depression may perceive certain aspects of reality more accurately than non-depressive individuals. Overall, the research into depressive realism has shown that individuals with depression may see reality more clearly than non-depressed people, and this may then lead them to make more accurate decisions and judgments. Yeah, it's a scary one, that, isn't it? So do we see through the illusion of life? Do we see through this simulation? Especially, again, like I said, with trauma, our souls are literally aching for a release from our meat suits. So I don't know. It's a tricky one. But Google actually says that these things are interconnected. Depression and trauma especially as well are deeply interconnected, obviously, with trauma often leading to depression as a response to an overwhelming stress and pain that we've experienced, and it's literally our insides screaming and crying, isn't it? And we don't know how to deal with that, so we just literally shut down. The National Centre for PTSD highlights that depression is nearly 3 to 5 times more likely in those with PTSD than those without it, indicating that strong correlation between two conditions of PTSD and depression. Trauma can also manifest in various ways, including flashbacks, panic attacks, and dissociation, which are all symptoms of trauma-related depression, believe it or not, and anhedonia. These symptoms can affect how an individual thinks, feels, behaves, especially if recovering from trauma, and it's been difficult. Yeah, so the emotional response to trauma can have a significant impact on the brain and the nervous system, as I said before, affecting your chemicals and your nervous system functions. So you won't function like somebody else that doesn't have depression. So understanding the connection between your trauma and depression as well, I will always say, if you've had childhood trauma, you need to look into the essential effective healing for it. It involves recognising that the related depression and understanding that it is response to deep unresolved pain, and by addressing these issues individually, that you can reclaim your power in the present and work towards a more compassionate self and awareness and more effective healing. Personally, for me, my depression was reoccurring. Like I said, it started at around the age of 14, and every few years it would just return. And I hadn't got a clue what the hell was happening, because I'd grown up around people, as far as I was concerned, that had never had depression. I didn't know what depression was. Nobody ever even told me or talked me through it. And I went to the doctors and they was like, oh yeah, just take some tonic, which like really sent me into almost like hallucinations. It was awful. I didn't know how to deal with it, and nobody else around me knew how to deal with it, because it was just like, oh, sweep it under the rug, just like we had with everything else in our household. So yeah, it was really difficult for me. But when I left home and into a bitter, horrible relationships with other people as well, I was just reoccurring these relationships as well as situations. I suppose people can say that you draw them in, don't they? It's just fucking shitty people, that's what it is. With the same patterns and ghosts of people that had just replayed my childhood. I couldn't escape it. And feeling like I could never escape my mind as well. I couldn't cope, so I'd shut down. I just literally couldn't cope, so I'd shut down. Yeah, every few years or so, I would drape that blanket of despair and nothingness and purgatory over my head, and we would disappear into my mind for a few years, or a year or so, or 6 months or 3 months, however deeply I felt at that time. I couldn't, or I didn't know how to face my demons. I didn't know I'd even got any from my past, and actually wasn't aware that the damage that was inflicted on me and the people I had around me, that was just so apathetic towards it. It wasn't until I had a realisation that one day with social media, it has its good uses, that I started to dig into my childhood and realised how traumatised I actually had been. And my mother wasn't just mean and abusive. On top of that, I had my CSA, which, to be honest, I just thought it was my CSA that kept on bringing it back. And again, the awful people that surrounded me. No wonder I had reoccurring depression. When I sit back and think about it now, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how I coped. I really don't, to be honest. I think the only way I could cope was for my brain to shut off. So yeah, after many years of research now and rumination and healing and working on my own shit, I've come to realise one day I was deeply down but not depressed. Where had my depression gone? And I stopped and recounted the last time and how much time had passed since my depression. And I sat for a few days and I was almost in mourning of it, the loss of a dear friend, because it comforted me when nobody else did. Yeah, it took me away from it all. So it's been nearly 12 years now since my friend left and never returned. And I miss it, I really do. But I'm proud that I've worked through the core issues that kept on bringing me back time and again to the abuse of my mother, abuse my mother caused me through my childhood. So yeah, it's I didn't realise it, and the physical and mental and emotional. But when it comes to someone just saying mean things, and brushing your hair hard for school and never been there and emotional withdrawal, and how can you say that's abuse? You can't, can you? But in the long run, and when I'm doing my research and stuff, it was awful, it was hurtful. And it wasn't until I really started to look into things and deeply dig, literally digging out my soul to resolve these issues, and with absolute wonderful people online. And this is the thing, I wasn't going to do this channel and I wasn't going to share anything because I think that my voice don't matter. But I've got to say, without other people sharing their stuff online, I wouldn't be where I am today, because other people have helped me online. So that's why I've decided to start doing this channel and actually help you as well. So I hope I am helping you. So I've become to understand that it was neglect, it was emotional abuse, it was silent treatment, it was verbal abuse of putting me down and crushing me. And before I'd even grown, the words cut so deep. But words don't hurt, right? Yeah. Oh, they do. And they did until I was 30. I was stupid, I was untrustworthy, I wouldn't amount to anything. She had real disdain for me. I don't know why she even bothered having kids. But then again, her other golden children are fine. So then others coming along and reinforcing this belief to me over the years that I was just nothing really. This cuts deep and it gets inside you. And is depression your soul screaming? Literally, I think it is. It's something inside you that needs a release. Yeah, and I know I've got another story that I got back in contact with my mother after 2 years of no contact. And I reached a point where I was sick of her misbehaviour towards me again, and I just wasn't going to take it this time. And I was trying to be there for her as much as I could. And one day she rang me, and it was the wrong time to ring me. I got really fed up and I bellowed at her for probably an hour straight. I told her that my dog loved me more than she did, that my dad was a meal ticket, and all about her lovely son and what he'd done and how she was still hoarding him in the house, which she really knew about, but she didn't want to do anything about. I got 28 years of anger out at her, believe me. My last words to her was, "Do you know what, Mother? I'm fucking done with you." And I put the phone down. That was 18 years ago, and it's the best decision I ever made, along with a good old rant and my repressed anger that I found out that I had afterwards. Depression slowly started to melt away from that moment on, really. There are many, many reasons for depression. I'm not just saying that it is childhood trauma, but we do need to look inside ourselves and see actually what it is. Right, but sometimes the real issue does lie deep within you and not outside factors, but it can be outside factors as well. Like I said, it was these people around me. But unfortunately with depression, if you've got a core issue, it will keep on returning like a stray. I hate to say it. And like my repressed anger. Yeah, I know, I hadn't even heard what repressed anger was until I looked into it as well. Like I said, it took me a long time to get to this stage. My repressed anger could be a result of repressing your feelings and emotions in your relationships. Hence, it literally eats away at us like poison over time. It is anger, and we're getting that anger and we're turning it inwards because we hadn't got a healthy environment to show our anger, and showing anger was wrong and you was naughty for it. So you couldn't show anger, you couldn't show what they were showing to you. Is depression and repressed anger the sadness of letting ourselves down? Is it time we took a little bit too much disrespect? Is it that time that we just didn't say anything? I think it really is, personally. I really have had to work through it myself, so I do. Depression can sometimes be a result of repressed anger, where unexpressed or internalised rage manifests as guilt, self-criticism or low mood, and more. Definitely more. Understanding the connection and the idea that depression may stem from anger turned inward originates from a classic psychoanalytic theory, first proposed by actually Sigmund Freud. He suggested that when individuals cannot express anger towards others due to social constraints, like I said, fear of rejection, or personal inhibitions, they may direct the anger towards themselves, which is toxic. This internalisation of the anger can manifest as guilt, self-criticism, feelings of worthlessness, and perceived sadness. And personally, I think that it also adds to perfectionism as well. I think that's part of it. But I've got this information, some of this information from NeuroLaunch as well, online.com. So these are not all just my words. Repressed anger often arises from early life experiences, cultural expectations, and learned beliefs that anger is unacceptable or dangerous. So if we explode, then we're going to get that anger back off somebody else, in a way. So individuals may adopt defence mechanisms such as identifying with the aggressor, passive aggression, or denial completely, which is this what's crushing your soul with depression, which prevent healthy expressions of anger later on in life, reinforcing self-directed hostility. Over time, this can lead to emotional numbness, shame, toxic shame. That's another subject I will go into later on. And a critical inner voice, negative self-talk, which I will do a video on as well. Perpetuating depressive states. That was from Psychology Today. People with repressed anger may feel sad or hopeless without recognising the underlying anger, and their depression may be accompanied by irritability, obviously, or subtle aggression. That's from Healthline. Not the only cause, but it's important to note that not all depression is caused by repressed anger. It's like I've said before, it can just be life in general, it can be your circumstances. There's lots of different reasons that you can get depression. So just take note on that I'm not saying it's all from childhood trauma or repressed anger. We're not all in the same boat. We're not had all the same experiences. That's what you've got to remember over time. So I do try to do a broad take on it, but it's all different for all of us. So some individuals experience depression primarily as sadness, emptiness, lack of positive affect without any significant anger. So before you go diagnosing yourself with depression, make sure you're not surrounded by arseholes. That's all I'll say. And that's all I will say, because depression is very deeply misunderstood and it's a mindfuck. It really is, and people don't understand it if they don't suffer from it. So it will never truly be understood, and we label it as depression, but do we all feel the same? I don't know. Personally, some of my depressive bouts have been worse than others, and sometimes I no longer wanted to be here. I did think of just ending it all, to be honest. And others just want to sit in nothingness and think nothing. And then other times I've had depression and it's just been constant negative self-talk and it's literally bullying me. So how is depression for you? Because I really want to know. Do you think you have deep core issues that makes it keep on reoccurring? Or is it just the depressive state of the world that we live in today and life? Because, come on, let's face it. When did life stop being so much bloody fun? When did it switch from multicolour to black and grey and white? When did life stop being so bloody fun? I want to know, because it's been gradual. It's been a covert thing where life, I know everybody knows it's changed in 2020, but Jesus, what the hell has happened, especially in the last 20 years, 25 years? I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Maybe it's always just the way it's been, or it's our mind with the odd nostalgia here and there, just to like cheer us up and cognitive dissonance us. I don't know. Anyway, I think that's enough, and I think I have waffled way too much, my love. So I will love and leave you. I really hope that this has shed some light on your depression, and I know that you are definitely not alone at this time, because that's the thing with depression as well. Everybody thinks they're alone and they're not. We all suffer from it in one way, shape or form, mild to some and very, very deep to others. We all sometimes go through it in one way or another. It's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of at all. The people pushing this belief that depression is something to be ashamed of are sociopaths. That's all I've got to say. There's no empathy, there's no feeling. And if they tell you you're too sensitive, tell them bollocks. It's a good thing to be sensitive than a robot. Battling and overcoming depression and ending things, thoughts, ruminating, takes true strength and determination. You're a fucking warrior. I'm sorry for the swearing, but you are. That's the only way I can get it across. So don't even think that you're weak for surviving. It takes true bloody strength to get through it and recover and start to live again. It really does. It's the bravest thing that you can do. It's just a sane reaction to this insane fucking world, honestly. So what you've got to remember is also what we're consuming in ourselves, food, constantly consuming junk food, alcohol, negative media, ruminating on your past, not living in your present and your future. And we're just adding to that battle of depression. If alcohol, that was my big one. Alcohol, I just went to the bottom of the bottle. I used to be sad, bloated, inflamed, consuming junk food, around negative, horrible people, which now has come out that it can make you chronically ill, being around these people. Smoking, all the negative media that's forced onto us from the outside world. We need to be very mindful of what we're allowing into our lives, as this is a really big issue, and I've realised this myself. And this year, well, I say this year, I've been doing it for 2 years now, getting in the gym, respecting my body has been one of the most uprising and achieving experience of my life. It's fucking hard to start off with, don't get me wrong. But once you get into it and you start getting that weight off, it starts to feel good. Believe me, you've got to force yourself. I cannot believe that I carried on the abuse that others had passed down to me for the years. And when I could take my power back and roar, oh God, you ain't seen nothing yet, believe me. So please be mindful of your general habits, as this can contribute to your depression. Anyway, for God's sake, I've kept you long enough, and I really. So thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate you. You matter. I care about you, and I love you. Stay strong. The world needs you, and you are beautifully unique. Please stay strong. Also, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you very soon, and take care. Love you.